Well, welcome. Today on the Figure It Out podcast, we welcome Kim Porter. Kim is a mechanical engineer and the founder of Hatch One, an inclusive firm that covers project and product management, technical advisory, process optimization, and mentorship and training. In addition to that, Kim also leads the Engineering Exchange, a community on school geared towards engineers, but not just for engineers, early in their career to help them learn and grow. I first came across Kim on her Mechanical Engineering Part of the Day series on TikTok and immediately knew she was someone I wanted to hear more from. She has a very unique blend of knowledge and leadership experience that encompasses engineering, management, communication, and all of those things. It was clear to me that Kim is very passionate about her field, and I'm so excited to learn more. Thank you so much.
Yay. So happy to be here.
I just this morning was on TikTok and saw your McFlurry, the McFlurry spoon.
Right?
Which, to me, that brought back so many memories. That was like maybe the first thing in my life where I was like, I understand how this works. They designed the spoon so they don't have to wash it every time. That's genius. Like, mind blowing. I'm so happy that I got to see that today because I had that memory come back to me where I was like, I remember being 7 or 8 years old, seeing this and being like, Mom, why is the spoon like this? Why does this have this little tab on top? And she owned a catering company and she was like, they don't want to do dishes. And I was like,
so right. Yep.
So genius.
Brilliant.
Two for one.
The workflow of that. And the best thing about that was I met with the person that suggests that there's a story behind this, Max, and it's hilarious. So in the engineering exchange, I was doing these posted multiple times on TikTok. I'll review your resume for free. So this guy that recommended the McFlurry spoon, I was meeting with and reviewing his resume and giving him some advice on what he could change and what would make it better. So I'm like, they don't exist. He goes, yeah, they're not used anymore. So guess how I found that? Yes.
I
Guess
didn't
how I
know
found
that.
that? Yeah, they don't use them anymore. The McFlurry spoon I found on eBay and I bought it on eBay so that I could do a part of the day because it is so clever. It deserved an investment from eBay to do a part of the day because it is. It's like 3 things in one. Reduces the workflow per your mom, clever design. The spoon's a little bit wider so it stirs better. And then the entire engagement with the machine. It's brilliant. Totally brilliant. So
I had no idea they didn't do it anymore. What do they do now? Do they just do dishes? Why did we go backwards in time? I don't understand.
I think they do. I was just there a couple years ago with my mom. I think it's a paddle now, but they don't touch anything. So it's the thing that it's in the machine and they stir it, but they just hand it to you. And then they you get your own spoon. But the comments in that post are hilarious. I was reading them the other night. I was like, hilarious. And one guy's like, yeah, they don't use that anymore. Now they just basically put the stuff on top and hand you the cup and you got to stir it yourself. And I'm like, that is not a McFlurry. Just saying.
No, that's a sundae with toppings. Like that's
Totally
different thing. That's
So
crazy.
the comments range from, gosh, can you imagine that side pull on the tool to create that, 25-cent polypropylene part? To they don't use them anymore and they just put the toppings on top. I love it. I laugh so much at some of the comments. And the coolest thing about this, especially in the engineering part of the day series, I'm learning. Like they're correcting my math, which is
Yeah.
the best. I mean, I can plant the seed, but I'm not always right. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Or I point at the wrong thing, or you're trying to video and talk and show something complex all at the same time. I'm not perfect. So super fun to do though.
Yeah. Well,
McFlurry.
yeah, I know. And I was like, oh, maybe I want one. But now that they don't do it anymore, I don't know. We are
eBay.
I'm in Culver's country. That's what I call it. It's just Culver's as far as the eye can see out here. And nobody goes to get ice cream from McDonald's around here because it's just like, yeah, let's just go to Culver's. It's 3 more minutes and then we get custard. So why would we
Oh,
not do that?
interesting. Huh.
But
I don't even know Culver's. I have to search.
really? Oh, that's like a Midwest classic. It's custard. It's not ice cream. They get very if you go there and you say, "Hey, I want a scoop of ice cream," they will correct you and say, "Would you like a scoop of custard? We do not have ice cream here." They call
Whoa.
their McFlurries are called concrete mixers. And one time I went through the
Yes.
drive-through and asked for a blizzard on accident. I was like, "Yeah, can I get a blah blah blah
Oh,
blizzard?" And they were like, "Concrete mixer," and I was like, "Oh, yep."
yep, that's what we do.
Sorry,
So
my bad.
is it the difference between, is it eggs in it?
Hmm.
Custard's had to eggs?
Yep, yep.
Interesting. I
So
do like custard.
me too. I think far superior. My perspective, but
Anyway, so
anyway,
eating McFlurry spoon. That's where I got it.
I love that. So okay, take me all the way back to high school.
Oh
Did
yeah.
you know like from when you were a little kid you wanted to be an engineer? Like I just said, like when I was 7, I remember asking my mom and like being curious about like this. I took apart CD players constantly. I was not allowed to have them anymore because I couldn't put them back together. They were banned
Mine
in
was
my
a bike.
household. Yeah. And so yeah, okay. So when you were young, like did you know this is what you wanted to do? What
No,
drew you to it?
no, I didn't, but my mom did.
Okay.
She said she knew, she found me with a lamp taken apart when I was like 3 or 4 in the living room. I always thought that I was going to be a lawyer and live in the woods and help people because I grew up in northern Minnesota. So, and I was going to do that until this is a TikTok post, one of the first ones when people are like, "What are you doing?" Early on, I was trying to figure out the algorithm. I was in 10th grade. My math teacher was my basketball coach, whose wife worked with my mother as a nurse. He told his wife about me and said, Kim should probably check out engineering. My mom told me, and I'm like, engineering? Fortunately, I was from a very small town in north central Minnesota. Fortunately, one of our guidance counselors in high school was an Iowa State graduate. And so he's like, oh, yeah, you should just. So he gave me all this information and it was done. I'm like, yeah, because I had been designing and building stuff for, I don't know, my entire life. Slingshots to shoot acorns at cars from the trees and forts in the backwoods and like 3-story forts, with
Hmm.
drawings related, like where we're going to get the scrap material. So I did not know it, but my mother, and she didn't tell me till I was probably in my 30s. She goes, it was a Thanksgiving dinner, a Friendsgiving. My mom was there, she'd cooked. And one of my friends asked her, like, did you know that or something about Kim and engineering? And she goes, I always knew, but she didn't. That was the first time I knew that she thought I should be an engineer. So that's the childhood story. And it just went
Hmm.
on from there.
And do you think that like you and I think, are very similar, which means that if my mom, I know when my mom told me you should do X, I did Y. I was like, nope, I'm not doing
Yep.
that. Whatever you want me to do. Do you think your mom was cognizant of that? Of like, if I tell her she should be an engineer, she won't be.
Yep. And that's
Okay.
why it had to go through Coach Cool. It
Okay.
had to go to somebody, it had to come from someone I respected. Not
Yeah.
that I didn't respect, I don't know, I loved my mom, but I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, mom. But coming from someone you respected, like a coach or a
Hmm.
math teacher, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. I think it always like has that ability to make you feel special. Like to like somebody sees something in you that you at that point in your life maybe aren't able to see for yourself, or you just don't even know that that other thing exists. Like you kind of have this inkling that, oh, I like this thing, I do this thing, but you don't know what to do with it. Like you don't know how to make a career out of that. Whereas somebody who you respect comes in and says, "Hey, you, specifically you are good at this and here's how you can make that a career."
It's exactly what happened. Yep, 100%. Um, and it happened slightly again. I knew engineering was key because I like to build things, but um, so my second job out of college was at Nike, and I chose to go there. And I don't know if you're going to ask me, but I'll just share with you. So my first job out of college was spacesuit gloves. I was going to get a master's degree. I had an emphasis in biomedical engineering because I really loved biomechanics. I used to go to the library to read the newspaper, and there was an ad for the manufacturer who designed and built the shuttle spacesuit back in the day. And they had this biomechanical, and the job description was like totally me. And I'm like, I'll just apply. Well, like a month later, I'm out there and I'm surrounded by these space people. And I'm like, I'm not, meeting astronauts and solving problems for astronauts and doing analysis. And I'm like, I don't care that I have a autograph photograph 8 by 12 from Jerry Ross. That meant nothing from me to me, but everybody else was like, and I realized there was a disconnect. So I went to Nike, and Nike is where I found out what an industrial designer was, which there are no industrial designers designing spacesuits back then anyway,
Mhm.
and product design and the engineering required to do good products. And that is when the light bulb, the check, I'm like, that is what I want to do. I want to design products related to humans. I ended up at Nike because I was a runner. I'm like,
Hmm.
there were spacesuit people and then there were runners. And I'm like, I want to go there. So, but that was another 2 points. Coach Cool, and then two women actually. This is one of them. She's also a painter. Two women industrial designers at Nike that shared what it is, where they went to school, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And people ask, would you back then, if you would have known about industrial design, would you have been an industrial designer instead of an engineer? I don't think I would have, because I like the engineering part of the physics and the math part of designing products.
And I feel like it really like it all comes together. And I guess my perspective of like industrial engineering, product engineering, and being like a hardcore engineer is that way you get to do it all. You don't have a product designer saying, "Oh, this curve looks better and it feels better in the hand," but then you have a hardcore engineer say, "Well, it's not strong enough for what we need to do," like blah blah blah. Then with your skill set and education, like you really are able to do the whole thing like end to end, right? Like it's not as segmented where I would also imagine that like designing a spacesuit glove is obviously a critical thing, super important. But when you think about the amount of time, effort, and people required to send somebody to space, like you are one of, I mean, how many people do you think worked on that project? 5,000 more?
Oh yeah,
Like,
gazillions. Yeah.
and to then move to Nike, which I assume was a smaller team, and then you get to really like do it all rather than just like your one little part.
Yep. And I want to be clear, I am not an industrial designer. I am aware of it, and I know I've posted a couple times per request of, what should I know to help the industrial designers as far as mechanical engineering goes, because I've designed things and then I'll give it to an industrial designer and just say, okay, here's the mechanical underlay. This is what will work. This is what's needed. And I think mine is beautiful. And they come back and I'm like, oh, yeah, I am not an industrial designer at all, but I'm aware of what they need and what they like in general.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
And if if somebody is like I like to build things, I like to work with my hands, I'm pretty good at math, how would you suggest they go about deciding, maybe between product design, I mean even UX design, I would argue it kind of has a
Yeah,
little bit
totally.
of place in there, on the software side or even in real life, industrial engineering and like hardcore engineering, like do you have a framework, a thought process that someone could work through to be like, oh, I would, naturally lean more towards this or that?
Yeah, I'll give you my framework. That's a really, really good question. So I think the three big categories in my brain, if I could frame it, would be UX, which is a really good addition that you mentioned, industrial design, and then we'll call it the engineering of that, right? So UX, if you really like research, use case scenarios, understanding how humans interact with things, data, quant and qual data, and look at things from a user insights perspective of like I call them latent needs, observing people and how they use a current product and see what could be better. This often comes from the classic is, you go and the janitor in your high school is adapted his broom to have five things on it because there's no product that exists. That is amazing stuff. You
Mhm.
insights, consumer insights, UX stuff, how you interact with things. Industrial design, if you like art, drawing, sketching, understanding proportions, making things really beautiful. You can look at things and say, oh, what, two products, and you're like, that one's much more, aesthetically pleasing. Why? Industrial design. They take a lot of the use case, the ergonomics, the form and function, the fit of things, how you hold things. So it's also related to human, but in a very beautiful way. And then the engineers are the physics of it, right? They're going to take the UX stuff and apply it like, oh, I got to get a handle on the other side of this box or whatever. And they're going to take the industrial design's beautiful form, fit, and function where they've interpolated all the UX stuff. And now it's coming to you, and you got to implement all of that into parts that can be made and assembled forever.
Hmm.
So building, troubleshooting, a little bit of math. A lot of people think engineering out. Well, I should say the PE sort of the professional engineering stamp people. Yeah, they might do higher level math and higher level physics, but a lot of it is outsourced now to people. That's all they do, right? You need really good basic math and really good basic physics because there's simulation programs now that help you, and most importantly, judgment, which I just made a video this morning on judgment and how judgment is more important than AI at this moment. So if you want to protect yourself, you gotta you gotta get to the judgment as fast as you can as an engineer in your career, like fast.
Let's talk about that for a second. So when I was a kid, I really struggled with math. Really, really struggled with it. And in fact, I wanted to be an architect when I was growing up, and I was like, they were like, "You're gonna have to do math," and I was like, "I'm out. I'm done. I'm not gonna do
Bummer.
it." It is a bummer. Like thinking about it now, just like how many, and also I learned that I'm quite good at math when you put a dollar sign in front of it. I got really good at that kind of math where I was like, "Oh, this is easy." Anyway,
Oh,
but
that's
I
awesome.
think my mom would. So my mom, when we were in the car, she would ask me math questions. 8 times 6, whatever, blah blah blah. And that was, the most fun car time I ever had as a kid. Um, but she taught me the importance of like think about if that makes sense. She was like, if I ask you what 1,000 minus 225 is, and you say it's 1,005, like that doesn't make sense. Or like think about like 8 times 6. Okay, well, it has to be probably less than 64 because use what you have to at least know if you're close. And I think that for math, that was obviously helpful. But I think about it all the time with AI and like being smart enough that you can do what I call a sniff test of like, is this right? Like, is this correct? And you have to get, like, it took me, I'm 4 years into running this business. And even now, sometimes I'm like, is that right? Like, did we make
So
that
good.
much money or does this price seem right to you? Like, I don't, I ask AI, hey, I need to order some smoke grenades. How much should I be spending on them? And they're like, oh, you should be spending $8 to $12 per smoke grenade. And I'm like, did I spend that much last year on smoke grenades? Is that real? And like having that sniff test to second guess that, like, is it takes so long to learn though. And to me, that's where like the experience markers, and I didn't learn this until I was much older. Because when I was a kid, I was like, I am harder working and I'm smarter than probably anyone you're gonna hire. But I didn't have that experience piece. And as a kid, I was like, I shouldn't have to. I'm smarter and harder working. But that kind of judgment, on my perspective, and I would love to know if you have a hack to speed this up, is really something you can only learn by being in it.
Yeah, so the hack is do it. So the post, it's coming out. I don't know when I'm going to post it, but I just made it today because I think I've been asked this question 3 times in the last week, maybe two. And I get asked all the time from teams that I manage. So the hack is, and I'm going to give you an example, and then you can interpolate it for whoever's watching this into whatever career path you're on or you want to be in. So for engineers, the big thing when you get an engineering degree, you're going to get out and you're going to make a lot of money. That's like that. So many people go into engineering because of that, and it's not necessarily true. If you know me by now, I'm much more like do what you love because every day's a Saturday. Not don't do anything for money. So the hack is regarding engineering students that will be into the engineering field soon, a lot of them are like, I want to go to a big company and I'm going to have 10 years of experience in this big company and I'm going to have a really good name on my resume. And I encourage younger engineers, I'm talking 1 to 5 years, don't do that because a big company, you're not going to get exposed or challenged the way you do to build judgment. So you
Hmm.
can challenge yourself with judgment. I'm doing it with my TikToks, man. There's stuff I'm learning. I'm like, ah, I didn't know that. That's a really good point. Um, Smaller companies, private companies, where you have the ability to fail and no one is going to guide you into not failing because they got to meet a quota or margin, which is more prevalent in larger companies. And I'm categorizing here on purpose, right? Smaller companies where you can fail early, fail often, have a mentor, get given work that's just slightly uncomfortable. That's where you want to be. If you're so in 10 years later, you're at the big company. 10 years later, you have done the same job for 10 years. You're just repeating the same thing over and over again. Smaller
Hmm.
company, independent work, you have 10 years of judgment practice of failing and learning and researching, redoing. When I look at 10 years with people at those two different companies and I interview them, there's a huge categorically difference on their judgment. Can they
Hmm.
problem solve? And I told this story and I know I posted it as a TikTok of it. One point, a senior engineer had done an FEA and missed the most critical part of it. And it, you know, 4 months later, the tool is built, the product is failing in test. Redid the FEA. Nothing's wrong. I'm going to add more glass. And I'm like, I said, it's fracturing. That's the opposite of what you need to do. Didn't listen. So the, the person who solved the problem was the general manager of our CM, our contract manufacturer in China, solved the problem with a different resin that was more ductile, less
Interesting.
stiff,
Yeah.
less catastrophic failing. It would just yield just a tiny bit just to get us to pass and the test was extreme. It's not going to fail with use, but you got to pass some pretty extreme tests. So
Right.
judgment, do it yourself as much as you can the first 1 to 3, 5 years out of whatever degree you're in is the most important thing, especially with this AI just pounding down the freeway right now. That's what's
Hmm.
going to save you. It's the whys, it's not the whats.
Hmm. Yeah.
And good
Yeah.
mom. You had a good mom.
She's the best. She really is. Um, yeah, and what's funny is like she's not great at math. Like she's not, but I was just like categorically bad at it. Which I mean, I got good at word problems. I got good at logic. Like as soon as similar to you, had a teacher that was like, okay, you're not bad at math. This black and white thinking doesn't do well for you. But when we
Mhm.
ask you logic problems like, if Sally lives next to John and John lives next to Bill, what color is Sally? Like she was like, you can
Yeah,
figure that out. Like that you can
so good.
do, which is math. It is. You don't think it
Yep,
is, but it is. So
yep,
having somebody in your life that says like, you're not bad at math, you maybe don't excel at this one thing, but also even if you are bad at it, you can get good at it. Like it is okay to be bad at something at first and then just get good at it.
right. Totally.
Like
Absolutely.
100%. So let's move a little bit along in this fictitious person's career. So we work 3 to 5 years in a small business. Totally agree with. I do think that I always hesitate when I hire new employees because I like to hire someone who has never had a job before, but I do love to hire someone also that's worked at like a McDonald's where they get trained in 3 days. Where here, small business takes like 6 weeks. And even then, like they're like, oh, I've never done this thing before. And it's like, oh, yeah, because I never had a chance to teach you it. But anyway, 3 to 5 years, we are maybe ready to like consider leadership. Like we are ready to maybe start thinking about that. How do you view like that decision making process of like, I think I might want to, I'm not sure, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm being pressured from people above me that's like, hey, it's time for you to move into a management role. And then like I don't know, maybe I want to stay an individual contributor. Maybe I don't want to lead people, but I want to make more money because I think that's I should have to, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you navigate thoughts and feelings like that?
That's so awesome because I was mentoring a woman in the exchange about this in the past month because it's been a very difficult for decision for her. So 3 to 5 years is probably not enough time for leadership, but definitely
Okay.
management. So she was trying to get forced into a more of a project manager role because, and she was considering it. I'm looking, I'm like, but knowing her history, I'm like, her brain is not necessarily a project manager. Project managers are schedules, deliverables, requirements. I'd call it somewhat babysitting at times, right? She's a design engineer, I thought. So it took her about a month where she realized that, oh, I'm actually thinking, even considering this because of the money. And I'm like, so you can do that, but you are young in your career. And if you do that now, just think of the 2 or 3 years that you're going to be in management that you may or may not really want to do the management. So
Hmm.
that's the first thing. Do you really want to be a manager or are you doing it for the money? So management is different than leadership, in my opinion. Management is very much of a control, guiding, mentoring, because the manager tends to be the one that's still like in charge, large and in charge. And
Hmm.
I am not a manager. Never, I'm not sure I've ever been a manager. I'm much more of a leader. I empower people. So if you want to go into leadership, if you're really into, and I've said this before, my purpose is to get everything in my brain of 40 years into the next gen of engineers. And I'm passionate about that. I didn't realize that until more recently, but I have been doing that for 30 years.
Hmm.
People have hired me to go in and teach a guy from the sheet metal shop to be a mechanical engineer. Startups hire me to come in and help teach their teams to do their job well. Clients of mine that are companies, right? So leadership is, it has to be a conscious decision. And there's a course I wrote for, it's free once you're in the exchange, on just this thing, the difference between engineers, and I'm speaking engineers. I only know engineering type stuff, right? So anyone who's listening, this might not be applicable to your career path, but engineers generally don't make the best leaders because the skills and skill sets that they learn that make them a really good engineer fail as a leader. The micromanaging, the precision, the having to
Hmm.
be perfect, those are not good leadership skills. Leadership skills are letting go, empowering, letting people fail, stepping back, guiding when you need to. But most important, having a professional development plan for your team, letting go, letting them and empowering them to make the decisions so they can fail and learn judgment quickly. So hopefully I answered. I know it's a little obtuse from the engineer's perspective, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. I think, and in thinking about, I think a lot about the societal pressure of moving up a career ladder and making more money and how to communicate to people that, like, get out of that as quickly as you can. And every person, I think, can get out of it in a different way. Some people find a career that they really love that doesn't pay shit and they realize, I think you really have to be on both sides of the coin because the grass is always greener, right? So like
Right.
I had a job that paid better and had benefits and it was Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 and blah 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 blah. And then I went into this and people thought I was nuts. They were like, "You're gonna work 7 days a week for no money and with teenage boys and blah 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 blah." And I was like, "I'm so happy.
You're
Like
gonna have a
I
blast.
I'm so happy." So like, and it got my parents off my back. I was like, "Listen to me. Do you want a happy child? Do you want?" And my mom was like, "Of course I do, but I also want you to be a contributing member of society." I was like, "Listen, I pay my taxes. Like, what do you want from me? It's fine." So I think but I think if I didn't have that experience where I was making more money and had a job that sucked, like, I don't think I would be as happy as I am because I wouldn't know
Mm,
that, like,
the
hey, this is it.
perspective. Yeah.
So I
And
think
so
for
oh, go ahead.
well, I just think for people who like want to climb that ladder, they're like, oh, of course I'll be happier because I'm making more money and managing people, and like that's what Bill did, so that's what I should do. So like, how to rein people in to be like, that's not it, without them kind of, I'm not, suffering's an extreme word, but like without them feeling the other side of that perspective. Like, I don't, is it possible? Can you do it? How do you like? It sounds like you kind of talked to this girl maybe off the ledge a little bit of like, hey,
Yeah.
pull it
So
back, do what you're good at.
I want to make one point. Quite often in engineering career paths, there's two. And this just came up in a TikTok live like last week, I think. Someone was asking, like, do I need to go into management? I got 20 years um, to make more money. And most companies will have both paths. There's a management path and a tech path. And so quite often I do my lives with an industrial designer that's at a big corporation. So it gives the perspective of both. So as an engineer, you should be able to make about the same amount of money, whether you're doing management or engineering. So that
Okay.
shouldn't be a decision for you. It should be what's in your heart. Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
design stuff or do you want to lead people? Those are two different things. So how I helped this young woman was, I'm not a manager. I didn't like, dude, you need to, I'm like, no. I asked questions, um, and had her do the homework.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it, like I said, it wasn't like, oh, okay. It was her reflecting and doing the homework of what brings joy in your life, what brought joy in your life between the ages of 5 and 10, you know, of your internships. When were you the most happy?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've had 2 jobs now. Which one brought you more joy? And you take the money out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's young enough, I think that the risk is smaller. You know, mid-career engineers, I think it's a harder thing because
Mm-hmm.
you're set in your life and you're fairly young to be able to do that shift quickly. Um, I think mid-level careers, it's a little bit harder unless you get hit by a 2x4 and you get laid off or, downsized or something. Fortunately, I went from wanting to live in a tent in the woods to helping people to being an engineer. So my perspective has always been not that. I've never really ever been driven by money. I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
anything for money.
Yeah, and I think when you can do it when you're young, and like I very much reflect that like I'm so happy I don't have kids. I didn't at the time I didn't own a house, so it was like okay. And then now I own a house and I kind of was like, you know what? Probably no matter what I do other than this, I'm gonna make more money. Like if I really was like, I'm strapped, I need to go make like, a
Totally.
bunch more money next year, like I could do it. I don't wanna, and I don't wanna have to, but like there is that kind of like what I always consider it like having another gear. Like I like to keep another gear in my back pocket to know that if I
Always.
really needed to, I could. And I do that with almost all things in life. I rarely put my truck in four-wheel drive because I don't want to because there's no six-wheel drive. Like it's
Right.
like, and what if I can't get out of it in four-wheel drive? Same with like work effort, right? Like I like to put in 85, 90% knowing sometime in the next 2 weeks I'm gonna have to put in 100. But if I'm putting in 100 right now,
Yep.
can't put in any
Plan
more than
B.
that.
Plan Bs are strategy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably one of the things I teach the most when I lead teams. Judgment, how to build judgment quickly. And it's not people giving you the information. You have to be go getting that judgment as much as someone giving you the information. You got to get out of that student mindset, right? And the other thing is strategy, strategic thinking. That plan B, there's always got to be a plan B. Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
a little guy, you got to have a plan B because you're not always right. In fact, you're probably rarely right. There's always a better idea. There's always someone going to come in and add a little thing to that. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta have a plan B. You
Yeah.
gotta only be at 90% Max's terms. Like you gotta
Yep.
have that strategy in place. So what happens? I'll do this instead. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go to where my heart is. My
Mm-hmm.
purpose in life. I'm gonna do that
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
and
I
have fun
think
making TikToks.
Exactly. And I think in the career stuff, it is so hard to take a step down, right? To say, oh, I tried management and I didn't like it, so I'm going to take a step down, especially in the societal stuff, like having to tell your friends, like, oh,
Yeah,
hopefully you have
totally.
cool friends. And like my friends are super, super supportive. I love them dearly. They wouldn't look at me sideways if I said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to be a lawyer and live in Sentinel instead. Be like, all right, cool.
Yeah, that's
Sounds
what you need.
good.
You need to surround your people that will support you being happy. And I just did a little road trip, and the people I met, and it was weird because they all kind of had the same philosophy of life. Of like, and you hear it, especially when you're younger, like Graham is like, well, no one dies on their deathbed thinking they should have worked more hours, right? But as you get older, and I'm in my 60s now, so I think I'm just attracting these people. Like I met these three in particular, and that the story was all the same, which is do it now while you're still young. You
Hmm.
know, get the teardrop trailer. This woman I met, I don't, she was it was at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico. And she must have been, hope if you're listening, you were awesome, inspirational. Probably in her 80s, maybe 70s, 80s. She had bought a teardrop ta trailer in her 70s and drove around all the US and Canada for 12 years.
Whoa.
And I'm like, could you back it up? And she goes, yes, just takes practice.
Yeah.
I was like, she goes, you're never going to regret any of that. You're never, as you get older, whether you're a manager or a leader and you had to go back 2 years because decided you didn't want to manage and you really like designing parts, it's not going to matter when you're 60, 70, and 80
Hmm.
because you'll probably be more happy. You want to sunset with joy.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, run the paintball business, I say.
I say too. Um, in kind of that same vein about switching careers. So okay, so you run the engineering exchange, which teaches people basically everything they need to know to be an engineer. I was always under the impression that being an engineer was kind of like being a doctor or a lawyer, and you have to go to school for it. Like, if you want to be an engineer, you got to go to school. And you are teaching me that that is not necessarily true. So, somebody's mid 30s, and they're thinking, I don't really like we'll pretend they're in finance. They're in finance, they're working 60 hours a week. They're like, I'm just not sure I can do this for the next, 35 years of my life, whatever it may be. What do you tell them to go back to school? Do you tell them join the engineering exchange and learn everything you need to know? Join a small company that maybe doesn't have these school requirements? Like, what steps do you recommend that they would take?
So for finance, I don't know, but for engineering, and it's interesting that this is a topic on this round of podcasts. So I got asked by someone who found me on TikTok to be part of a committee that was reviewing the curriculum for an engineering uh, school within a university. I'm not going to say the name. So I joined because I have what, and I've talked with many, I'm going to say many now, many people about how the engineering curriculum has changed over the 40 years since I graduated. There's a huge difference. So, what is in the engineering exchange? It's primarily a community first. So, you join and you have 100, 150 people of engineers or makers or whatever people that are interested in making things to collaborate with, and they're engineers, so it's been a bit of a the momentum's shifting slightly where they're lurkers, right? They just want to learn they don't want to engage. So I'm encouraging everyone to engage more. But you have this community to ask questions, to brainstorm with, where we got brainstorms happening now. I've started a women in engineering subcommittee that's meeting today. So it's whatever the community wants. So when you get out of engineering school now, not so much when I was in school, you have high level theory of physics and math and what they call capstones now, which are projects you do with teams of 3 to 6. No individual projects. No, yeah, exactly. I mean, I had theses. I had a junior and a senior thesis by myself, right? Um, and the lack of the ability to communicate. Like I had to take a technical writing class. We had to give presentations. We had to put things together and present in front of people. The capstones get presented, but I'm not sure much else does.
Okay.
So they're coming out with no, and then we had like building stuff. We had to build prototypes and present stuff. They do that for the capstones now. And I've interviewed a lot of engineers, and and there's a lot in the exchange I've been mentoring now. They don't do that either. So they're getting out with theory, and they get asked often when they can't find a job. Not even help on writing a good resume is it. They're all like biographical. They're not selling you. I mean, there's no positioning on how I can help you solve your problem when I hire you.
Mm.
Um, and it's tragic. And what I heard in this committee was somewhat similar. They're more worried about revenue and numbers and grants and research than teaching engineers. And I don't know if it's not intentional. I think it's malicious anyway. It's just I think what's evolved given our university structure in the US is it's
Hmm.
very revenue driven and grant driven and research driven. Instead of understanding. And oh, when I was in university, tons of people from outside in industry coming in, either as professors or speakers or guest lecturers to teach you what was going on in the real world. That doesn't happen anymore either. Most all professors are tenured and they've only done education. So you're lacking this perspective of what it's like in the real world.
Hmm.
So in the engineering exchange, you get the community. They don't teach you sheet metal part design, plastic part design, product development process, contextual thinking, none of that. And all these courses are free, pretty much, except for the lesson ones. Like the sheet metal is like 28 lessons long. Basically teaches you how to design a sheet metal part. You could go read all the design guides from all the sheet metal manufacturers and learn that. But so when I say you join the engineering exchange, you would be able to be a design engineer. And I have so many people asking me, like, I'm 30 and I want to go back and become a mechanical engineer. Can I do it? I'm like, absolutely. 30 is young. And as I've said on TikToks, I have multiple, I think there's 3 or 4 software engineers
Mm.
that have joined because they want to go back to mechanical. So that's the basics. It's
Okay.
providing a community so that you can learn judgment quickly, talk to anybody you want about a problem you're trying to solve. We're starting brainstorms now too. If you have a
Mm.
problem, then you want to brainstorm, call a couple people together, we'll brainstorm and get some solutions going. Um, and then there's free courses, a lot of them now. I do masterclass lives where one was on CFD. I walked through the entire product development process. I did a live on all the different rapid prototyping methods when you develop products. And then there's paid courses that are there basically because I did them when I launched the exchange. In
Mm.
hindsight, yeah, I probably would still. So there's design for manufacturing, you learn the big 4 processes. There's contextual thinking, that one's free. There's designing sheet metal, designing plastic parts, and then parts, not products, how to think of parts as a system instead of just
Mm.
one individual part.
Hmm.
Super fun. I'm having a blast.
That's, yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible. Like, I mean, it's a very, and I also think that it's a great entry point. Like, if you're like, hey, I'm not really sure if I want to go back to a 4 year school, like, blah, blah, blah. What if I hate it? Like, I think
Yep.
being part of a community, A, you get to talk to people who probably are full-time engineers, so you get a little bit of insight of what their life is like. And B, you get a little bit, I mean, you get a ton of the education where, if you do decide to go back to a 4 year, you're probably leaps and bounds ahead of whoever's going to be along, which is great.
Yeah. And there's
Um,
there's there's students in there. There's like right out of college learning. There's probably a good section of like 1 to 10 years out that
okay.
like solid. They either lost their job and wanted help with their resume. And then more recently, senior, like 20, 30 years, 15 to 30 years out of senior people just wanting to be a part of mentoring. And recently another woman senior who's big into women in engineering too. So it's uh it's awesome. I'm having a blast. And again, it's fulfilling, my road trip Like
Mm.
my purpose is helping people and primarily mentoring, teaching young engineers how to be really good at their job. That's what I would like to do. And fortunately, I have the engineering exchange to channel all that information. A little bit of TikTok in the part of the days and stuff, but
Yeah.
primarily my energy is in the engineering exchange right now.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to circle back a little bit to this kind of curriculum situation. I've two things. I am shocked that I think 3D printing has become so normal that I guess I'm surprised that these students aren't 3D printing everything that they've ever thought up. Like,
Oh, I think they do. So yeah,
okay.
they have 3D printers, but they don't have, and you've probably seen some of the TikToks. 3D printing is not part design. So they come out, and I've done multiple posts on this. They come out thinking that their CAD model is the result
Hmm.
so that they
Okay.
can 3D print it and it works. Okay, well, I'm done.
Mm.
That is so far from being reality.
Yeah.
There's no engineering judgment. They're just modeling something up because that's what they did in school.
Mm.
Your grade was based on how well you modeled up this CAD part, which had, might have some parameters in there, but in real life, probably not very many. And then
Hmm.
as I continually say, especially with the bamboo printers that have come out,
Hmm.
they make really great, incredible FDM parts. And it's deceiving to engineers because it happened at my last team, it happened more times than I would like to admit, is designing for a 3D print, releasing it for tooling, and then it doesn't work at all.
Right.
And two different things. It's the material property,
Hmm.
like snaps don't work, and it also is, clearances and stack up tolerances. You
Hmm.
have to understand the DFM of those parts and not just 3D print stuff. 3D print is great for fit checking and figuring out if the mechanism movement is what you thought it was going to be. It is
Hmm.
not good for design engineering, other than the front end stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's that, and it makes sense, especially like, I guess I almost always come at things from a business perspective, right? So it's like, okay, well, it costs this much to 3D print something. Obviously, we can't do that at scale. So, okay, well, yes, it worked in this one setting, but how is it going to work in a factory in China?
Yes.
These two things don't necessarily translate one to the other. So, like,
Yep.
you know,
Exactly right.
yeah, interesting. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention was I am such a big proponent of adjunct professors. Like if you have an adjunct professor at your school, you need to latch onto them and just never, ever, ever, ever let them go.
Yep.
Like I had one adjunct professor. We are still in contact. His name's Jack. He's awesome. And he just like he taught this class and I actually made fun of him a bunch because he was a consultant for one of the big four and he taught an entrepreneurship class. And I was like, Jack, consulting is not business ownership. It's not entrepreneurship. It is in fact kind of the opposite. You had no skin in that game. And he was like, you know what? You're right. And I was
It's
like,
awesome.
and I was just like, I don't. So I had a lot of distrust for him at first because I was like, I don't trust a consultant to teach me how to be an entrepreneur. You've had no risk. You've had not like you haven't had to deal with
Totally.
any of that. And he proved himself to be very worthy. But he
Love it.
like because he was an adjunct professor, he spent a bunch of his other time. He was kind of similar to you, but like in the business world. So he was like, I just want to mentor young entrepreneurs and teach them. I felt like what he did such a good job of was like, let me teach you all the best parts of working at a giant industry and all the best practices and all that kind of stuff
Totally.
and translate it to your startup. Like so most of this we're gonna throw away, but there is a reason why these companies are so big. So let's glean some of that information and put it here. And he was able to make connections and all that kind of stuff. So like guest speakers that come in, always take their email, always take their phone number, always try to meet up with them after if you can.
Absolutely.
Adjunct professors, just hold on to them, buy them coffee, do whatever you have to do,
Yes.
stay close.
100% agree on all of those. And that I don't see that as enough. And there's not even networking skills that are coming out. Like they don't. Engineers, I'm only speaking engineers because that's who I meet with primarily, but
Hmm.
they don't know how to network. They don't know how to talk to people, do research. It's very theory, and so many of them. I mean, I can't even count on two hands anymore. Like maybe they're struggling getting a job and they're like, maybe I should just get my master's. My professor's telling me I should just get a master's degree. And I'm like, so here's what I tell them. And I've probably told more than 10 people this now. Before you get your master's, spend as much time as you would getting a master's degree. This is if you want to go into, academia, then get your master's, of course. But if it's because you're struggling getting a job, first, spend as much time as you would getting your master's degree in networking, informational interviews, writing good resumes, and landing your perfect job. If you still
Hmm.
don't have a perfect job after you spend that much time, get your master's. But I guarantee you, if you spend as much time and focus on getting your master's as getting a job, your dream job, the right
Hmm.
way, you're going to get your dream job. 100%.
I'm going to make a generalization where I'm going to say I think that some engineers go to school for engineering because they don't want to network. Because they, in their mind, they're like, oh, this is a black and white job and I can get it in a black and white way. Whereas when I went to business school, I was more like that, where I was like, I don't really want to network. I don't really want to talk to these people, blah, 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 blah. Like it took me a long time for someone to convince me that, like, okay, special snowflake, you are smart. You still have to do this part of it. And I think that engineers are so like, so the school that I graduated from has something called a reverse career fair. And they did this specifically because engineers really struggled to communicate with recruiters or anyone that was willing to hire them, where they would stand at a table, they would have their resume printed out, and recruiters would come to them. So rather than a career fair where
What?
they flipped it around, so they do this reverse career fair, which I think on one hand is genius, and on the other hand, I'm like, don't coddle them like that. Like,
Right.
don't
Stop
do that.
enabling. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I guess what's your take on like getting an engineer to be like, hey, I know that maybe you thought that engineering wasn't going to require any networking and what I'm going to call soft skills. Not a great name for them, but
Yeah.
um, you still have to do them. Like, how do you convince them that like, hey, you have to do this, and teaching them like, and this is how.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of that since I started doing the free resume reviews because pretty much I think I've reviewed between, I don't know, 50 to 100 now. I mean, a lot. And of
Mm-hmm.
that quantity, two of them have been good.
Okay.
And not the best, but good, right? And so this logic of networking and talking to people starts when you look at their resume
Mm.
because they can't your soft skills, I use that term too, their written communication isn't very good either, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts there, and I do it logically because I'm an engineer, logically to tell the story as to if you're sending this out to someone like me to hire you, this is what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah. So if someone's hiring, and this is exactly what I've told many, many people, if someone's hiring, and this is what the switch in their head that has to happen. If someone's got a rec out to hire someone, they have a problem. They need resources. They need someone really smart to solve this certain thing. They need to split their team into two. Whatever their problem is, it's
Mm-hmm.
there. And what you need to do is find out what that is. Sending them a blanket biography of who you are is going to get flipped through faster than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the logic of a resume is to communicate to people how you can solve their problem. And the problems are generic. It's these usually three or four things over here, right? And once that shift gets shifted in their head and they
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh, I'm actually going to have to, I can't just have one resume I send to 4,000 people. No, you can't. What you should be doing is researching the company you want to work for, the
Mm-hmm.
position at the company you want. And mechanical engineering is very broad. Most of these engineers don't even know what they want within mechanical engineering.
Right.
So you got to do the homework, talk to people. What is this position like? What is this company like? What is this blah, blah, blah? And then frame your resume as a positioning document. This is how I'm going to help you here.
Hmm.
And when you get interviewed, you'll get the job because you've done the homework. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm really passionate about blowing things up and I'm really good at launching rockets and or whatever it is,
Hmm.
because you've now matched your interest with a company in a position that you know you're going to be able to solve their problem for.
Hmm.
So all of that, it starts with the resume. And part of the resume and part of the networking is informational interviews, calling people to learn. It's not hire me. If you call
Hmm.
me for I've done so many informational, it's so fun. It's someone, there's a couple of universities that are, it's part of the curriculum. They have to
Yeah.
find somebody to do an informational interview with. And one young man, he's like, linked me and connected with me on LinkedIn as like, Kim, do you have one or two engineers that I might, so professional, so well done, I might, you might recommend that I could do an informational interview with? And I'm like, why not me? And he's like, you would do it? I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
So informational interviews to learn, not to get a job, to
Hmm.
learn. That's the difference. A lot of engineers are so desperate because I got an engineering degree because I'm going to make a lot of money. That's not how it works.
Hmm.
Just not. Did I answer your question? That was kind of a roundabout way again.
I loved it.
Okay.
I do think, and like these podcasts are partially to teach kids how to do an informational interview. Like, hey, just
Awesome.
pay attention. These are the kind of questions. I mean, I get a little broad, I get a little weird, but like generally speaking, and to also teach people that like I, a normal person, can get a hold of superstar Kim and like have a conversation with her. Like, and you are so willing to do it because you're great and amazing, but so many people are willing to do it because they had their own Kim. They had, and they have no problem turning back around. Like when I was working at St. Thomas and talking to the students about the same thing of like, go to an informational interview, they were so nervous. And part of it's a COVID thing for sure. Like part of it was like, I was working with kids who had their sophomore, junior, senior year mostly at home. So they were like, I don't know how to communicate, period, much less with people in power above me. So, like, okay, how do we do that? How do we grow the confidence to ask them for this? They're like, but I don't have anything to give them. I'm like, that's you are giving them an opportunity to talk about themselves.
Yes.
Like that is what they want to do.
You are giving them an opportunity to help. And humans in general, if anybody on the side of the road with a flat tire, looking in a career, if someone asks you as a human for help, they will help you no matter what. It doesn't matter what level they're at. We're humans generally are kind and want to help. They want to
Mhm.
add value. It's purpose. We are built and here for that specific thing. So if someone asks you for help, they're going to say, yeah. I don't know. What's your guess? I'm guessing it's probably 95% of the time.
I would say probably 95%, as long as you're keeping within what I would call your bounds, right? Like I
Yeah.
had some kids that were like, "Well, I want to meet with Jeff Bezos." And I'm like, "Okay, well,
Yeah.
yes, people want to help you, but let's rein it in a little bit here. Let's be
Yeah.
realistic." But like, so we have a minor league baseball team, the St. Paul Saints. I messaged their general manager or the president and was like, "Hey, Derek would love to like learn about this, blah blah blah." And he was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'm free in 2 weeks." And I was like, "Okay, great. Like,
Yep.
thank you so much." And like,
Done.
perfectly happy. I've had a few people be like, wow, I wish my kids took an interest in me and what I do the way that you take an interest in it. I'm like, well, so I think, yeah, people just,
They generally want to help.
yes. And I think it's so funny. Students were like, well, I'm equally nervous of this person ghosting me. But I'm also nervous that they're going to respond and say yes, because then what do I do? I'm like,
That's
okay,
true.
like, let's get through some etiquette here of like, okay, if you're going to meet in person, it's okay if that person pays for your coffee. I know you think that like you're the person asking them for help, so you should pay for it. They know that you're a young broke student. They're okay. It's fine. Don't worry about
Totally.
it. Get there early. And I think to me, the biggest thing that I tried to communicate was like, just be interested. That's all you have to do. Be interested. And when they tell you to do something, do it. And if you tell them you're going to do something, do it.
Yep. And what I say, the most important thing for all these people that are hearing this to do informational interviews is a lot of them like they come back and like I did it and I'm like, well, what's your next steps? And they're like, well, they didn't have anything. And I'm like, what? Never end an informational interview. If
Mm-hmm.
because you should be asking them um, more questions, right? Who can I follow up with? It's never a no. So if you can't help me, are there like you're doing a cold call to Jeff Bezos and he's like, yeah, I don't have time. You ask them, are there three other people that you could recommend for this specific topic? So suddenly you went from one to now three different people. And you call these three, you could have three more. So within 6 degrees of separation is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, you have more informational interviews to learn than you'd ever dreamt you'd ever have, and people
Mm-hmm.
willing to help.
Absolutely. And when you are like, obviously you should not be pitching them on yourself when you're
No,
sitting
this
in
is
an
not a job
information. This
interview.
is not a hiring thing, but they are a great person to have in your back pocket. They're a great person to say, hey, maybe 6 months ago you guys didn't have this job opportunity and now you do. What And the question should never be, can you get me a job? It should
Yeah.
be, hey, is there anything specific I should include on my resume that you guys are looking for? Blah, 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 blah. Like those are the kind of questions you ask so you're putting the work on yourself. You're not saying, hey, I know you, so can you get me a job? Like, don't
Yeah,
give me
no.
that frat bro bullshit. Like, no, no, no.
What does your company do? What you're learning to see if you would fit there.
Right.
And if you do enough informational interviews, this is what I tell people, eventually you're going to meet somebody who knows somebody who needs an engineer that's just like you because you're doing the research and what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get an interview landed for something you're interested in, the interview is seamless because you're passionate about it. You can talk about it till the cows come home. Like it is obvious in an interview when someone's just interviewing to get a job and interviewing to actually add value. And you want
Right.
to be the latter. You want to be
Mm-hmm.
someone who's really interested, passionate about whatever the company does, or whatever this group within the company does, or whatever this job position is. That's what you want because then you're just a shoo-in. People hire people they know first, they like them, and they think they can do the job in that
Mm-hmm.
order.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So other than information, I guess, like what other tips, tricks do you have? People like, I guess, the engineering exchange is particularly interesting because, in my perspective, there's so many entrepreneurship peer groups. Like, there's so many women's entrepreneurship meetups. I love them. They're great. Like, whatever. I have never really seen that exist. And I think my perspective is entrepreneurship is extremely lonely most of the time, right? Like most of the time, it's all on you. And if you have a good partner, God bless them. I do.
Yep.
So, like, thank God for that. But most people don't. So, that exists for that corner of the universe. Similar in engineering, lots of meetups, not really. Do you suggest that people get involved in that?
Yeah, so this came out in the TikTok live I did on Sunday. And it's the reason the engineering exchange got started is community, is meetup, whatever you want to call it, is a way to collaborate with other engineers, to have someone to talk with, to have a coffee, whatever it is that's going on. They don't really exist once you leave college. So
Mm,
within college, there's Society of Women Engineers, SWE, there's the ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And what I learned on Sunday was depending on where you live, sometimes those organizations are big
mm,
and adding value with lots of activities, and other areas they don't even exist.
mm.
So it really is dependent on where you live, I think. I think it's a geographic thing. I learned
Sure.
that Boston has a huge ASME group going, and they have things going on all the time.
Yeah.
In every place I've lived, have never been near one.
Mm,
So multiple people when they, especially the OGs, the really original exchangers that came
mm.
in, that was the main reason. It was like,
Okay.
my gosh, finally an engineering community where we can talk about making shit and I got a problem I can't solve and it's fun. Now,
Hmm.
mind you, they're all introverts. So again, the engagement has been a little like sometimes the Q&As will be like 5 to 7 people. if I do a master class and I say I'm going to record it, two people show up. I'm like, it's much more fun when you have a dialogue going on with questions. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, I think it's imperative to have perspective with whatever entrepreneurship, engineering
Hmm.
product design. It's imperative.
Hmm.
It makes for better products, it makes for better people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is super fascinating that, you go to college and they lump you in your class or your sector with all these people that are doing the same shit that you are, and then you go out into the real world, and depending on where you work, obviously like companies are big enough where it's like, "Hey, welcome to your team of 20 engineers," and then it might feel similar, but most places it's just like, "All right, good luck. See
Yep,
ya."
you're gone. Yep. Yeah, it's very and then what I've learned, which I'm still just amazed at, I've heard this repeatedly, and I feel for it, is that there's so many senior level engineers that don't share information. They keep it for power or keep it for whatever reason. And so there's a lot of those kind of comments in the exchange where they're just grateful that someone is willing to share. Like, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to die. I'm like, someone should learn about, jam nuts. Like, because it took me a long time before I learned about them. And usually
Hmm.
the priority is like, I'm getting a lot of suggestions for part of the day, the mechanical engineering parts of the day now. But in the early days, it was like the stuff that took me a long time to figure out, or the silver bullet that would come in because some guy told me you should try this. I'm like, brilliant. Everybody needs to know about this.
Hmm.
That's what needs to be out there.
And people holding it onto it for power. Like I think that that happens so frequently, and I think it kind of goes back to the manager leadership thing we talked about earlier of just like people holding so dearly to stay in power and to have leverage over others. And like, I guess my perspective is that that really is a very top leadership problem, right? Like if you should make your senior leadership feel comfortable sharing all that information with everyone else and say your job is no longer to do the work and to have the knowledge. It is now to empower people to do the work and to have the knowledge. But it
Yep.
just seems like that doesn't always come down, or people are just so insecure about it. It's like, okay. And the it would be an interesting longitudinal study to say how many of you lived through the Great Recession, and like,
Yeah.
is that now that senior leadership, you lived through the Great Recession, you are doing whatever it takes to
Yep.
be indispensable, like that's your only
Yep.
goal. Okay, let's shift that mindset a little bit.
And I shared this on our first podcast, and it's important. I'm going to share it again because it's somewhat related, which is so I took quite a few managerial classes at Stanford, and they were
Okay.
profound in my little brain. And I took them in the 90s when I was still pretty formative. I was doing the sponge and learning as much as I could.
Hmm.
And of every company that I've worked at since then, since learning how to lead and it was pretty much a creative, innovative product development sort of leadership course I took. One CEO has applied that of all the companies I've worked at and have had experience with. And when you see what you learned at Stanford applied to a, multi-hundred-million-dollar company and
Hmm.
watch it work is mind-blowing and profound, because now you have the data that if you do it the right way,
Hmm.
it works. So whatever level I'm at a company, when I come in to help, I apply those principles. I'm not
Hmm.
the CEO, nor do I ever want to be as anything above founder and president of Hatch One. But any director level that I've come in at, I apply those same principles, which relinquishes the power. It is literally empowering the people below you
Hmm.
with guidance and frameworks to perform what you are delivering at your director level to the CEO.
Hmm.
That's your goal. And most managers, I'll call them, don't understand that trickle down is like the company's got a goal. It's got to make $500 million this year. And these
Hmm.
are the initiatives that the CEO has laid out. First of all, that rarely happens. And we're going to accomplish all these. And they trickle down to every level below that. The VPs, the directors, the team leads, the
Hmm.
individual contributors are all working towards this same exact thing.
Hmm.
One company in 40 years.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah. I feel that so this year I did that with my boys. I
Perfect.
had this was the first year that I did it. And I sat down and said, we are having a beginning of the year orientation. And they all go, we've worked here last year. And I said, I don't give a shit. I'm gonna pay you. It's fine. I'll bring in donuts. I mounted this TV. So I was like, okay, we're gonna hook up my laptop. Here are all the initiatives that I set forth for this year.
Perfect.
What all of them are. And I think what I did that I think was helpful, we'll see how it shakes out, was I put a little asterisk next to each one that said, here's how you can help. Here's
Perfect.
specifically, because there are some things that I put an asterisk there and said, this is my shit. None of you are gonna like this is mine and mine alone, right?
Yep.
Um, but putting that little asterisk there, I think kind of got them to see, okay, I can help. I am part of this.
I'm
Blah, blah, blah.
connected. I am connected to this bigger thing.
Yes. And I think that for them was a big like, oh, and of course the like, hire and fire then based on that, right? Like I
Yeah.
have these initiatives, I have these core values, and I'm like, hey, this is how you display them. You get
Yeah.
stars based on how well you
Yeah.
display those things. And they all tie up, right? Like the initiative gets tied to a core value, gets tied to a thing that you can do that can get you a star, which
Yep.
will eventually get you a thing that ideally resonates. It all works together. I can't imagine doing that at a scale that is a $500 million a year thing, but as a
Yeah.
manager being able to like interpolate that down,
Yep.
and I think get beyond, and I'd be so curious to see like what the study is on if parents make better managers, because explaining that why and getting beyond the because I said so,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that is a big like because I
It's
said so.
true. I think that data exists in my head. I know that whether you have children or not affects how you work in an office. But so this CEO that did this, he met quarterly,
Mm.
similar to what you got going on there. It was a quarterly all hands meeting, and he walked through every single original initiative every quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a stop sign. So it was either we're doing great, green,
Yep.
need a little help, yellow, and oh man, we're failing, red. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the company could see at a top level how each one of these initiatives was going based on
Mm-hmm.
what was happening from below. It was amazing. I'd leave them
Yeah.
going, man, I learned this was like I was there in like the 2010s and I'd learned this, 20 years earlier and got to
Mm-hmm.
see it applied and profound. It was fabulous.
Yeah, I do a process every July where I have a killing day where I kill a bunch of initiatives. I go through and I go, all right, we're not doing that. We're not, and I'll add them throughout the year too, where, because we're small, I can
Right.
look at market trends and be like, oh, a customer really liked this, or they had a good idea, or a commander had a great idea. So we're gonna add an initiative. But then I also do a reaping day where I say, I'm not doing that. And for
Reaping
me,
day.
as a leader, it takes off some of the pressure to be like, oh, I got all these initiatives I wanted to do and blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah. And like, I do it with my wife where we do a guilt-free fridge clean out where it's just like a guilt-free day. We
totally.
just, everything in the fridge comes out and I go,
Gone.
I'm not going to eat that, throw it away. So
Yep, totally.
giving
I
yourself
love it.
the permission to do shit like that, I think is critical, which I also think we'll pull it back to giving up on a career. If
Yes,
you have tried it, hey, guess what? Quit.
totally.
I'm a big proponent of quitting. Like,
You don't, every day should be a Saturday. And if within reason, right? You're going to have bad days, good days and bad days. But if you're not being driven to do what you are doing in your job,
yeah,
fix it.
yeah.
Reap
I
it,
had a
baby. I'm going to,
yeah, I had a welding professor that said 30% of the time you're going to be sweeping the floor.
it's great.
Just is what it is. The other 70% of the time, you should be happy with what you're doing. So anytime I'm doing something that I'm like, oh God, I wish I wasn't doing this, I just go, this is my
I'm sweeping
30%
the
sweeping
floor.
the floor.
Yep.
Just is what it is. It's part of the job. You
Great.
can't have it all.
But the big picture, the purpose you have, that should be crystal clear with
Yeah.
intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, purpose is a big thing. I have had many friends go to therapy to try to find theirs. My mom, when she retired, she had a life coach. She hired a life coach, which is very not my mom. She is very logical, black and white. Very odd of her to do that. But she was so nervous that when she was done working, that she was like, but this is my purpose. How do I find my new purpose? Has this been my purpose the whole time? How would I define that? Because I do think the busier people are, the more they kind of tunnel vision and
Yep.
they lose sight of that. Like it happens to me during the summer, right? Where I'm just like, I just need to get to next week, and that's I'm not thinking about
Totally.
purpose and blah blah blah. But if someone's just graduated college or they're in really any point in their career and they go, you know what? Shit. I got 10 years down this road, 2 years down this road, whatever. And I have no idea what my purpose is, what my North Star is, what my whatever is. How do you even start to think about figuring that out?
Uh, I just finished a book that was
Wait,
profound.
writing or reading?
Oh, God, there's so many people that want me to write a book. That's so funny. Hence the look on your face. I'm like, eh. And I was thinking about writing the book on my little road trip, and I'm like, I hate writing. Like, I think I'm going to write a book. Someone suggested this on TikTok uh, when AI can just collate all the mechanical engineering parts of the day and every leadership blurb I've done, and just I'd be happy to do the outline. I can do strategic outlines till the cows come home, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I just finished listening to a book and it was profound. For me, it was great because I've always, and I think it was my mom again, probably my mom and my gram both were like, and partly my upbringing, which was very service driven. We did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of volunteer work and finding purpose, and so it's always kind of been in the back of my head. But I also had a mother that really reinforced that you had to have joy in your life, like,
Mm.
and you should never be doing anything for money ever. So that has helped me. So I just finished this book, The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. I
Okay.
highly recommend it for anyone that's in a transition, anyone that's looking for meaning in your life. And it really comes down to a spiritual aspect that most people, when they're tunnel visions, you can't actually have. So he literally walks through why it happens. Oh, and screens. His philosophy is, we have these little computers with us
Mm-hmm.
all the time now. That is, this passive scrolling is distracting us from looking inside because you have to be quiet and
Mm-hmm.
alone generally when you find out what's really in here for me to be, what is my purpose. But
Mm-hmm.
he does a great job of walking through. He gives you little exercises walking through. Someone recommended this book and I'm like, I think I know what mine is, but it'd be worth little listen in the road on the
Mm-hmm.
road. So, and it was, I didn't stop listening to it. It was really good. So
Yeah.
there you have it.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. My mom's motto was work hard, play hard. She was all about work hard, play hard, kid. So I don't know
I
that
love it.
it's interesting. I grew up with, very entrepreneurial parents and parents that worked hard, play hard, and I don't know that we were big on like don't do things for money. She was kind of iffy about that. Um, she was very cognizant of like the careers that we wanted. Was like, okay, make a living though. Make a
Yep.
living does
Yep.
come first. And I think
Yep.
my parents, my mom was worried that we would leech off her for the rest of her life. Like she was like, I will not have children that are leeches. That's what I will
I
not
love
be
it.
doing. So I think she was very concerned about that. But I don't think, it would be interesting to go back and ask my mom now and say, like, did you feel like you had purpose when you were doing what you were doing, or did you just like doing it and you didn't? I think,
You definitely ask her. I'm curious. I'm curious to
uh,
see what she would say. My mom absolutely knows that she
yeah,
had purpose in everything
okay,
she did. She has dementia now, but with her dementia is a lot of the 30, 50 years ago stories, and they're all like
mm,
she knew.
yeah,
Like she was a nurse. I mean, she kept nursing well into her 70s. I'm like,
jeez,
yeah, like not me, not my purpose whatsoever. But um, Yeah, it's a tough one, and people spend years
Hmm.
trying to determine, figure out what their purpose is. But I do believe these things don't help.
I very much agree. I just listened to a podcast about breaking up with your phone. It is an author. She wrote a book
Ah,
about how to break up with your phone. And I am a 28-year-old, complete phone screen addicted, 100% willing to admit it. And but I wasn't ready to do anything about it yet. Like I was kind of in that stage of grief where I was like, I am accepting that this is the way I am, but I am not quite ready to like make a change in my life.
hmm.
And it was, but the thing that she said that I was like, that I can start to do. And she was like, when you grab your phone, she said, put a physical marker on it. So she had a hairband on hers. I don't have anything on mine. Um, but just think about why. Like, what are you grabbing your phone for? And
The
she and I,
why.
the
Again,
why.
the why.
And I liked that she was okay with. She was like, if you're grabbing your phone because you want to be distracted and you want to scroll, that's fine. Give yourself the
Totally.
grace to do that, but just know that that's why you're doing it. Don't play games with yourself and say, "Oh, I got to check my email. I got to check this. I got to do that." You know, why? Because it was why and why now. Like, do you actually need to do that right now at this
Right.
very moment? You know, and I
Awesome.
think that was a great, like, so that was last week. I think I was cutting the grass and I was listening to the podcast and I was like, okay, that's a great little thing I can do. She was like, take your phone out of your bedroom. I was like, okay, that's too far. That's a step too far for me right now.
He says the same thing, phone out of the bedroom and no phone in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I have no idea if I'm addicted. I don't, but I'm not your generation. You're my kids' generation. So
Yeah.
I have no problem putting it down. I mean, and
I
I
think,
get a little in trouble on TikTok because it's turning, I mean, I, I'm on it twice a day, maybe, right?
mhm.
And so people are asking me questions, and other people are answering the questions before I actually get to the comments of the questions that they
That's
have.
great.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, and as I said, I'm learning stuff too. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a purpose is as I've said on the last podcast, it's like how many fishing seasons do you have left?
Hmm.
And the less the fishing seasons become, the more that purpose becomes amplified if you're aware of it. You have to be
Hmm.
aware of it first.
Hmm.
The heads down, workaholic striver type people, they're generally not going to be concerned about purpose. They're concerned about, wealth and what I'm going to
Hmm.
retire on. But having a mom that worked as a nurse in her 70s and hospice for most of my life,
Oh.
she instilled a lot in me of nobody dies wishing they'd worked more. They
Hmm.
regret not having more community, regret having good relationships with their family. They regret not taking that long vacation that they didn't take.
Hmm.
Those are the things. So again, as your sun's setting and the fishing seasons come, 20, 15, 10 years, I think that purpose becomes more and more. So yeah, curious what your mom would say. That's a great
Yeah.
question.
And I think it is something that having people around you ask you good questions can make that process so much easier. Like I did it, my wife does it for me constantly, and I'll do it for her occasionally, where I just start to kind of pick up on little patterns of like, okay, so she went from an individual contributor to a manager, and she had a really, really tough time with that transition of like, is this really what I want to do? And we had a conversation where I said, you know what? Every time you talk about meeting with students, you light up. You had a great conversation with a student, you did a great resume review, you had a great interview prep, you did it. You get these thank you emails from students that say, I landed my first job, thank you so much. Like you're gonna get those too. And I was like, and then you talk about these team meetings or having to do what I call managerial bullshit, which I consider managing people's emotions, which is your job as a manager, whether you like it or not. Um, and that just drains the life out of you. And I think having other people in your life being able to pick up on those patterns and kind of pull you back into yourself, pull you down to earth a little bit and say, I noticed you really light up when at dinner when we talk about XYZ and you fucking dread the days that you have to do these other three things. Like
Yep.
that if you don't have that kind of introspection yourself, which I certainly don't at my age, and maybe I will grow it one day, but not yet, having those people around you and also having the vulnerability to tell them and to like
Yep.
have those conversations with them, I just think is like so critical.
The engineering exchange, I'm mentoring a lot of people, and almost every single one I've spoken with there's been something along those lines because they're joining for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Resume, purpose. Am I going to like this? What part of mechanical engineering should I go into? But yeah, you're absolutely right. Having somebody, stranger, mentor, boss, partner, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
ask those questions helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adjunct professors, hang on to
Yeah,
them. Just never let them go.
love it.
Okay, Kim, if people want more of you,
Yeah.
you have the engineering exchange. I mean, it sounds like you're open to doing informational interviews. Not sure how busy you're going to get. But
Informational
that,
interviews. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can get me there. You can get me through my company's website, hatch1.com. All
mm-hmm,
these are linked in my TikTok profile, kporter.stuff. And then you type in, I found someone told me this, you type in the engineering exchange in a browser and the engineering exchange platform on school, which is our community, shows up.
mm-hmm.
You can click on there.
Yeah. And
All
it's
of those.
$10 a month is the base membership fee, if I remember
$10 a
correctly.
month gets you everything that you would really want. And then if you want to educate yourself more, I think there's 4 classes that are fee based.
Okay.
But one of them will teach you how to write a resume, how to network, and how to do an informational interview for $20. So they're not like there's one that's $40 for which is parts not products, and then the educational ones like teaching you how to design parts are I don't remember. I think they're 150 maybe.
Okay.
Everyone that's taken them though has been like, yeah, and I'll do follow up. One guy took at the plastic part design, and I met with him for I don't know a couple hour afterwards, and he asked hard questions. He's like, okay, now if that's it, which was great. So if you have questions through any of it, I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Do people have to have any basis of engineering before they
No,
take any of those classes? No. Ground up, toddler to engineer.
yep. Well, maybe not toddler. Again, it's like basic math and basic physics, but you don't even need that for the courses. They're
Okay.
very a little bit of geometry, maybe a little basic engineering, physics, and materials for like the plastic and the sheet metal, but um, there's just a lot of information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. And cool people, such cool people.
I mean, makes sense. You're cool. You attract cool people. It all makes sense.
The whole
Uh,
energy thing.
yeah. Okay. I forgot. I have one more question.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, the traits that you find common in successful engineers, like top three traits you meet somebody, even if they're not great at math, even if they're not XYZ, that you're like, you're going to be a great engineer.
Curiosity, accountability, talk to people.
All right.
The talk to people is going and getting information and not expecting people to come to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this
Yes,
wonderful hour of time. I, you just make my day every time I talk to you. So
I
this is
love
great.
these.
What a joy. So if people want to get in touch, LinkedIn, join the school community, follow Kim on TikTok. It's a wonderful part of my day when I get to learn something new. It's like a little micro education right there on TikTok. So stop your brain rot and learn something.
I love it. You are amazing. I can't wait to do this again.